Welcome back to the channel. It's been a little while since the last TA video. This should be fun. There's been a lot going on in the market. It'll be pretty chill. I want to thank you all for joining me on the interview with Sever, and a big thank you to Sever for doing that. I think it went really well. We've been getting a lot of good feedback, and I'm really happy about it. One thing I want you guys to know, a couple of you sent me some EGLD donations after that interview went live. So what I want to do is give something back. If you haven't seen it yet, go back to my last video. It's the interview with Sever from Elrond, and leave a comment. All right? Sometime in the next week, we are going to do another TA video, and when we do that, we are going to randomly pick a winner live from those comments. And after we exchange information, I have your hero tag. I'm going to send you one EGLD as the winner. So make sure you enter. Make sure you leave a comment on that video, not on this video. I mean, you can leave a comment on this video too, but if you want to enter to win one EGLD, leave a comment on the last video with Sever. All right, so today we're going to talk Bitcoin. We are going to talk EGLD. We have a lot going on with both of them. So let's go over the charts. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you leave a comment in the not in the description, but in the comment section below whenever you get a chance. Let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to first go to this view here. We are going to get our screen up. Okay, and pretty much what we're seeing is fairly interesting now. We're going to go through a couple of different things on this chart. This is the weekly chart, okay? The first thing we notice with Bitcoin is that Bitcoin on the weekly chart, obviously it took a large dip very recently, but we're really concerned with these regression lines. So if you look at this area here, this is where we got major support on this regression line, and we basically traded below it for a while, but we came back above. Then we hit resistance on the next regression line, and now we have come back below and we've gotten support on the bottom regression line, the same one that we got support on here. So now if we see similar activity to what we saw here, well, then we're looking at an uptrend to take us to somewhere around 70K, right? And that could happen within the next month. That's kind of what we've expected for a while, but to be honest with you, by November, December, a lot of us were actually expecting Bitcoin to be much, much higher than 70,000. We're talking somewhere in the 100,000s is where we were expecting it by the end of the year. And I still think that that's possible, but we're going to have to see rapid appreciation for that to happen. All right, so I want you to look at one key thing on this chart, on the weekly chart, and that is this moving average here, the 20 exponential, that blue line. Now, the thing that you notice right now is that we fell below this line this week pretty significantly. We came back and now we're trading above it. This is a key area to trade above, because when we are above this line, we are essentially in a strong bullish momentum trend. You can see that the entire way through since last March. When we broke out, we got above the 20 exponential and we rode the 20 exponential all the way up. We didn't fall below it until we hit all-time highs. Then we got support on the orange moving average, which down below is the 50 exponential. So we got support on the 50 and then we jump back above the 20. Now we're getting support on the 20. So it's really key to see, do we continue to get support on the 20 exponential and then move up? That's really what I'm looking for next on the macro picture for Bitcoin for the longer term. That's what I want to see. And it may be a few weeks until we get confirmation. So keep an eye on that on the weekly chart. Very important. Let's move down to the 4-hour. This is where we really see some more granular information. Now you can really get an idea of what's been happening. So let's go back to about the beginning of August. That's right here. Now in the beginning of August, we broke out of around 40,000, right? When we broke out of 40K, we rode all the way up and we actually hit the top of that regression channel. So if you zoom out a bit, you can see the regression channel, right? We break out here and we basically break the 40K mark right here at August. Now we are hitting resistance at the top, right at this regression line. Expected. You knew months ago that when we break out, we are going to hit resistance at the top of this regression line. I've been telling you that for a very, very long time, and now you're seeing it, right? You see it very clearly right there. We went back up. We kind of got resistance on it one more time. We didn't really touch it, but we got resistance on it again. Then we fell below. Well, look at what's happening now. This is really the very interesting part of what's going on. if we zoom in, we see a couple of key things. The dashed line is our bottom regression channel. This is the same place where down below, we fell below it when we hit 28, 29K, right? This was in July. And then we came back above that regression channel. We traded in this entire channel, and now we hit the same regression line again at the bottom. Now, what you'll see here is that we have another line. This green line is our Fibonacci retracement line. So we have some very clear areas of support here. We knew that this was going to be an area of support, and we also knew that this was going to be an area of support. And this is right around the $40,000 mark, so it makes sense. That's where our Fibonacci retracement line is. So what did we see? Well, we saw the price drop, and as soon as it hit the regression line, it went sideways a little bit. So it traded on the regression line. It tried to get support there, and then it fell through. Now, when it fell through, it hit this regression line, or this Fibonacci line, at the 47,700 mark, roughly. So it drops below, it wicks, it goes back up. So we know that around the 41,000 mark, so this was 41,700, around the 41,000 mark, so 40 to 40K, we know that there's a ton of support. We went up very quickly. People were waiting to buy at this level. Then what did we do? We had another little sell-off when the price came back up to 43,000. We dropped down again. We went all the way down to 39,600, and we got bought back up. A little bit of trading. Within the next 4 hours, we were up above 42K again. We got essentially what we saw here as major support on this Fibonacci retracement line. Even though we fell below it, we came back above it within those 4-hour candles. And then we went right back up to around 44,000 over the last couple of days. And what's happened now? Well, we're hitting resistance on the regression line. So the real key here is to see, was this area good enough for support, right? Was it good enough to flip this into support to allow us to keep moving up? If we hit resistance here and don't break out of it, well, then it's definitely possible that we come back and test this again, back to the 41.6 mark. I want to see if we do test this, do we set in a higher low? I want the trend to go this way, right? You really want to see higher lows coming in, and that might mean that we have a trend line like this, right? If we come back down, we come and touch right around this trend line at 41,700, then we keep moving up, and that may give us the momentum to break out of the actual regression line that we are looking at here, which is right here. And, you know, keep in mind, if we're back at this regression line by September the 26th, that's only 3 days from now. Well, that's at almost 45,000. This line is moving up rapidly. So right now, we really want to see, how do we interact with this regression line? Are we going to break through it? Are we going to hit major resistance there? We don't know yet. And the area is a pretty key area. It's 44,000. If you look now at a longer time period, you start to see something else. I want you to look at the right-hand side of the chart now, the VPVR. This is the volume profile visible range. This is giving us an area. This is giving us an idea of what the volume was like in this price range with the visible time frame. So right now, the time frame we're looking at is basically from August the 16th until now. So a little bit over a month. So that's this entire time frame, and that's the volume in this time frame. Well, what does that tell us? I'm going to go back a little bit further. Well, it tells us a couple of things, okay? So if we look at this range, you see here that we have a ton of support below us, okay? This is between 37,000 and 40,500. You can clearly see that there. There's a lot of support there. Well, what happened when we saw the drop? We dropped down, and we came and we hit that support, right? Next thing we're doing, we're coming back up, and now we are hitting an area of resistance, and we're getting resistance there. So this is expected. But I want you to keep in mind that there's not a ton of volume in this area. This is from 40,000 all the way to 44,000. So even where we are right now, we're putting in more volume, but there isn't a ton of volume in the 42,000 range. So seeing the price come back down and trade between 41 and 42 and kind of build this up, very possible. We see that happen more often than not with Bitcoin. It fills up these volume areas until we get enough buying there that the price keeps moving. We had a lot of buying here between 45,000 and 48,000. So it's a good assumption that we'll continue to hit resistance on the way up in this 46,000 range. And when we do, more than likely when we go up, you're going to see something like this with the regression line. You're going to see the price bump up, hit that resistance, come back down, and flip the regression line into support. When that happens, that's when we can really start the bigger uptrend. You see that happen very, very frequently. It happens a lot. It's very possible we see something like this. So keep this in mind. These are the things I'm looking for. Now, out of all of that, what does that give you for Bitcoin? Well, it tells you a couple of things. It tells us that a good bottom target right now is around the $38,000 mark. That's because that's where we have a wide range of support here. So even if we come down to this level, there's a good chance that it's going to get bought, a lot of volume here, and it's going to push us back up to the 42,000 mark. Now that tells me that if I'm looking for a good entry price for Bitcoin, I'm probably going to put an order at 39,500 and at 38,000. I may even put one at 40,000 for posterity because it's obviously it's going to hit 40K before it hits 39 or 38. So you might be able to pick up some at that level if the dip occurs. Now, if the dip doesn't happen, then where we are right now, 44,000 is a terrific buying point, because the one thing you know about where we are now is that we're right underneath this major resistance area. And as we put in more volume here, if we break out, we may not be coming back below 46,000 again. Right? We could go up to 60,000 and then drop back down to 40, right? Have one of those big corrections that we always have where people take profits. That's a possibility, but I'm not going to plan for that because you don't know if that's going to happen. If you have a flood of buying coming in, that may never occur. So there's no reason to plan for it. Instead, I plan for areas where I can keep dollar cost averaging. And for me right now, that's 38,000, 39,000, 40,000, anywhere in those ranges where I think I might get a decent value buy. I also would probably buy some right where it is now because I think once it breaks out, hits above 48, like I just said, I don't think it's coming back down. So keep that in mind. Our high target right now is around 48,000 because that's really the key area we need to break to get out of this major resistance. And once we break that, well, then 50K is not too far off, right? We can come up, we can hit a little resistance at 50, come back, get the support at 47, and then we can break out of 50 and start setting new highs and have this trend keep moving up, right? We have this upward trend that will likely continue. So keep that in mind. That's kind of what I'm looking at as far as targets. I am not worried about Bitcoin at all in the longer term. I'm just looking for good areas to get in. That's pretty much it. All right, we're going to look at a couple of other things for Bitcoin before we move on to EGLD. We're going to look at some on-chain data and see if that helps us out. Okay, so we are going to go into full screen mode real quick and we will switch over to CryptoQuant. So a couple of things I want you to see on CryptoQuant, all right? I always take a look at the net flow, and you guys see a lot of this stuff on my channel as far as like my Twitter. You know, you see a lot of these charts and stuff. So I want you to keep an eye on a couple of things here, okay? We're gonna make this bigger so you can see it. Okay, so this is the net flow on the block level. What you can see is that we have had a lot of inflows over the last day or two. So if we zoom out, you can see this a little bit better. You can see here, these are the days at the bottom. So this is the 22nd, this is the 23rd. So in the last couple of days, you've seen pretty high spikes coming in. And keep in mind, this is 800 Bitcoin is where my mouse is right now. This line going horizontal across the screen. So we've hit 800 Bitcoin a couple of times. So this means a lot of Bitcoin's been coming onto exchanges, but you've also had a lot of accumulation happen and you've seen large amounts leave exchanges. Here we have about 2,000 Bitcoin exiting exchanges. Here we have 1,100. Just today we had 1,300. We've also in the last couple of hours had 600. You know, earlier yesterday, last night, we had, 700, so that's about 1,400 Bitcoin leave exchanges. So we're having a lot of Bitcoin exit, we're having a lot of Bitcoin coming on. That's what's bringing all the volatility. Now, one thing that's happening when you see something like this, you want to know overall what's happening to the exchanges. So now we switch over to the exchange reserves. All right, this gives us an idea of the supply of Bitcoin that's available on exchanges. This is at the daily time frame. So if we take a look at this, I want you to really pay attention to this. This is showing you a long time frame, okay? We're looking at the day. So this right here is the beginning of 2020, okay, where my mouse is now. So from 2020 to now, look at what's happened to the reserve, to the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges. It has plummeted, and you've seen the price has gone up significantly. Well, now what's happened is that the exchange reserves have dropped to a level that is extremely low. And if you go historic, if you go back even further, well, you can see that the last time it got this low was back here. Okay, this was September 2nd to the 4th of 2018. Look at the price. If you go down, the price was around 7,000 for Bitcoin at that time when the exchange reserve was at the same place it is now. Now, we have traded at this level, this rough level of exchange reserves for quite some time. And you'll see the last time we were at this level was at all-time high. The exchange reserve was really low. Well, what happened? Then there was a lot of selling and the exchange reserve went up. Right now, what's happened is you had a lot of selling. The exchange reserve went up, it peaked, and then you had people buying. And as the price has come back up, the exchange reserves have plummeted. Now the price has gone up a decent amount, but the exchange reserves have not. So this is telling me a couple of things. It's telling me that no matter what, the amount of Bitcoin going onto exchanges is not supplementing the amount of Bitcoin leaving exchanges and new user adoption. You have new users coming in every day that are learning about Bitcoin, that want to buy Bitcoin, and that are buying Bitcoin. As that's happening, the supply is getting more distributed amongst more people. What you're seeing happening is the reserve on exchanges is continually going down. This is the makings of the supply shock. And this is kind of what's keeping Bitcoin at a point where it's very difficult for it to drop very far. Because at this point, even if Bitcoin was to drop to 20,000, the fact of the matter is there's so little Bitcoin available for sale that at that price, it would shoot up again, because as people start buying, the supply would run out. And then the only people willing to sell are the ones that are going to sell at higher prices, and the price is going to go back up. So I really doubt that with the supply and demand economics for Bitcoin the way that they are, that we are going to see the exchange reserves spike and the price go down. I don't think that's going to happen. I think what we're going to see is that over time, the price is going to keep appreciating and the exchange reserves are going to keep dropping and the price will keep appreciating. That's what happens in this deflationary ecosystem. What happened here is that the exchange reserves went up really high and there weren't a lot of people buying. This was during a pandemic and a financial crisis. This was a liquidity crisis last March. Well, as soon as that started to recover, you saw what happened. Price went parabolic, exchange reserves went parabolic in the other direction. I think the same exact thing that we saw here is going to happen again. We're going to see price go parabolic at some point in the next few months, and exchange reserves are going to plummet again, and it's going to reset the valuation of Bitcoin to 100,000 or more. That's what I see happening in the long term. So these are two key things I really wanted to share with you. We are now going to move on to EGLD. We did about 17 minutes on Bitcoin. I hope you got your Bitcoin fix. Leave me a comment. Let me know if you enjoyed that and if you got some good value out of it. All right, let's move on. All right, we are looking at EGLD, and we are going to switch over to our larger view. Now with EGLD, we're looking at the daily chart, all right? When we look at the daily, actually, you know what? Let's start off at the weekly, the same way we did with Bitcoin. Okay, so when we're looking at the weekly chart for EGLD, well, you start to see a couple of things, right? A, you start to see that, as we've been talking about for a long time, we were likely expected to get support at this regression line. Well, we saw that, right? Then we were expecting to have an uptrend and set new all-time highs. Well, we saw that too. Okay, let's move on to our long-term prediction and see how that's looking. This is a prediction that I made a long while ago. So, all right, this was the long-term prediction. This is how it's looking so far. We have gone about 50% of the way. We are halfway there from when we made this prediction. We made this prediction when the price was somewhere around $80 to $100 down in this area here. Now, what we are seeing with this is that we have kind of kept up with this uptrend the entire time. We're falling a little below it now. Look what happened the last time we fell below it. We fell below the projection here, and then in the next week we went up, and then we went sideways, and now we're falling below it again. So I'm going to expect that in the next week or two, we are going to come back up. We're going to be somewhere in the $250 to $400 range. Well, we're already at $250. We're at $256. But I would expect sometime in the next 2 weeks that we should be trading above 300, 350. Somewhere around there is what I would like to see. That's our median for where we're projected to be. That's at the upper regression line. It's not going to be smooth sailing the entire way. Obviously, you have appreciation like that. If the price goes up to, let's say, $400, $500, well, then you can expect a drop back to around 300, maybe even 280. You know, you can expect a pretty big drop. You're going to have these big corrections. Look at what happened. We went to $300. Let's go down to the 4-hour chart, all right? You got to keep your expectations always as feasible as possible. So use historical information to give you an idea of how assets trade, even something as bullish as EGLD. All right, we came down, we touched the bottom regression line at 130. Then we started our uptrend in early September. All right, we pushed up all the way to the top of this regression line. We hit the regression line at 220. We dropped down. We went back up. We went all the way up to 293, hit 300, and then we corrected. When we corrected, where did we go? We went to this Fibonacci retracement line here, and we got support on it. If we go back historically, you can see that Fibonacci retracement line, we had hit resistance on it before. We also hit resistance on it before there. If you go back even further, you'll see it's the same Fibonacci retracement line where we hit our original all-time high when we first breached 200. So that is a long-tested retracement line. So it makes sense. We set a new all-time high, and we turned previous resistance into support. That's what we did. That's why as soon as I saw the price drop to like 180, 190, I wish I could have bought it around 175. I would have been able to if I had an order waiting, but I didn't. So I woke up in the morning and I saw that EGLD last week was sitting at $190. Sorry, take a sip. I saw that EGLD last week was sitting at $190. As soon as I saw that, I bought more. And that turned out to be a relative bottom. You know why? Well, because I saw we dropped below this Fibonacci retracement line. I saw us getting support at the 170 level. And when the price was at 190, I was like, okay, I don't think it's going to go back down. I might as well buy it at 190 and just sit on it. And that was right on the Fibonacci retracement line. And I've just held it since then. So I bought some at 140, I bought some at 190, and obviously I was buying the entire way before. I even bought in the 200s when it first hit 200. So I've kind of bought all over the place, and now we're sitting at 256. Now, look at where we are now. It's another key place, kind of like Bitcoin, right? We are breaking above this regression line again. So, key thing, are we going to break above it? Are we going to flip it into support? That's what you want to see to know we're going to keep moving up, right? If you just see us go parabolic like this, well, then there's a good chance that we're going to come back down and test the line, right? You want to see something like that. You want to see the price go up, come back and test, then go up. Now that we've had this once, we've already fallen below it. We're hitting resistance on it again, and we're kind of breaking out of it. If we keep moving, well, the next area of resistance I'm expecting is around 310. That's the big major resistance. Anywhere from 300 to 310, the previous all-time high. We can test all-time highs numerous times. So we may come back, test the all-time high again, come back down, and this time get support here, unlike falling below it here. Then we could just keep trading sideways a little bit until we have a major breakout. Keep that in mind. EGLD in general, in my eyes, is still as bullish as it's been when the price was only $12, right? From $12 to now, the project has only improved. Even when we hit the all-time high the first time, earlier this year, when we hit around 240, which we're above right now, when we hit that all-time high earlier this year, EGLD was very bullish because we knew what was coming in the project and what it's capable of. Well, now we're getting closer to that. In my eyes, it's worth double or triple what it was earlier this year. And earlier this year, it was at $200. So that means right now, if I had to give a fair value on EGLD, I would say that based on the progress of the project and the fact that the DEX is right around the corner, Battle of the Yields just happened, Panama, if I'm not mistaken, listed EGLD as one of the cryptocurrencies they're looking at. So you have EGLD showing up on the national stage. You have a lot of use for it already. And you have the DEX coming now that's going to bring a flood more users in. Well, in my eyes, all of that combined, along with just the infrastructure, the monetary supply, the way the project works, fair value, anywhere from $400 to $800. That's what I think EGLD is worth at the current landscape with the current user base. Now, keep in mind, when the DEX is out, if user adoption goes up rapidly, well, that could quickly rise. That $400 to $800 value might go up from anywhere from $800 to $1,200. It could go up very quickly because you're talking about a limited supply asset with a better infrastructure than the majority of its competitors and suddenly bringing a whole slew of new features online. So I think there's major appreciation to come, and I think that it's going to be very interesting to see, but I will warn you, it's going to be a bumpy road. This is not going to be a strictly singular parabolic move up. If you have a 100% move up, expect a 50% move down, right? Maybe even 60% move down. So always keep those things in mind, that even if the asset doubles, you could see the price drop again. So you can't just expect things to go on forever. You got to be ready for stuff. So if you were holding EGLD since $100 or since even $50, when you see it go up to 300, if in your mind you're thinking, oh, now it's going to 400, 500, 600, that's not right. You should be thinking, okay, it's hit 300. It may retrace here and go back down to 250 to 225. You should be thinking about, if you want to accumulate more, where are you going to do it? You know, and why do you think it'll go down to those levels? So where would I have put EGLD going down to if we're looking at the 300 mark? Well, I would say our first target would be 240. That's at our regression line. Our next target, major target, would be 180 to 190. That's our Fibonacci retracement. In between, you have smaller support and resistance areas. You have the moving averages. Keep all these things in mind. There's a lot more that you can look at, but for now, these are the key things. I want you to also look at another one major thing before we wrap up, and that's the RSI. The EGLD RSI on the daily is very, very interesting, all right? When it's in the bear cycle, when it's going down, well, we start hitting resistance on the 45 level. All right, this actually happens with Bitcoin too. This is a fairly common thing you see with some assets on the daily chart. The 45 level as resistance means that we're in a downtrend. The 45 level as support means we're in an uptrend. And we've seen that numerous times. Here, we broke out of a downtrend and 45 was getting supported. And what happened to the price? Well, the price went insane, right? This entire time frame, the price went insane. It went from $7 all the way to 200. And look at where the RSI was. It was trading above the 45 level. Well, what happened here? The price dropped and it got support on the 45 level. Then what happened? Price kept going up, right? We hit a new all-time high. What happened once we fell below? Once we fell below the 45 level, the price started dropping, right? So this was the bear cycle. Now we are back above the 45 level and we actually just bounced right off of it with the dip recently. With the dip just a couple of days ago, right? When we went back down to 170, well, we bounced right off the 45 level and now we're still trading above. So as long as we are continuing this trend where we are trading above this 45 level, there's no reason for me to think that we are entering a bear cycle. I would need to see the price drop significantly, maybe to like 160, 150, fall below this area and not come back up. If we start getting resistance at the 45 level on the RSI, then that's a cause for concern. We haven't seen that yet, but keep it in mind, right? Because the price may go up to 400 or 500 and then drop below. Even if everything else is in a bull market, when something appreciates that much, it's going to consolidate. All right, that's pretty much it. I think I've given you everything you need for the time being. You know what? Let me just give you targets. All right, so this is the last thing we'll do with EGLD before we wrap up. Okay, so my targets for the upside for resistance, you already know, sits at the previous all-time high, 300. We don't have any data outside of that. I would say that nice even numbers are good. So on the higher end, well, if we were to go up to the top of this regression line, we're talking about resistance at the 420 mark. I don't think we're quite there yet to assume that we're going to hit that anytime soon, but I think that it's very possible. So just keep it in mind. If we break above 300 to 320, well then 400 may not be far. But we might trade there for a while, right? We could hit 400 and then come back down. So keep that in mind. Those are my upper targets. My bottom targets right now are sitting right at these levels. So number one would be $200, all right? $200 as a bottom, I think is even kind of unlikely. I would say my first target is probably at these moving averages, somewhere around 230. If we fall below 230, well, then we are looking at the 200 exponential on the 4 hour. That's sitting at 200. And then below that, we're looking at 190. So those are the key areas. And no matter what, even if we hit those and we don't fall below them, we are still going to be in an uptrend. So as long as we maintain that uptrend, that's a good thing long term. Think that gives you all the information you need. Thank you again for joining me. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you follow me on Twitter. The links you need are all in the description. And make sure you go watch my interview with Sever. I might put one of those little cards so you see it somewhere, maybe over there or something, right? Click on that, watch the interview. It'll teach you a lot about Elrond. Sever was very generous with his time and knowledge. Make sure you follow him on Twitter as well, and leave a comment on that video if you want to try to win 1 EGLD. All right, next week, sometime in the coming days, sometime next week, probably when I do my next TA video or the TA video after that, we are going to randomly pick a comment. We're going to use a generator, pick a comment, and that person is going to win 1 EGLD. And who knows what it'll be worth by then. It could be 300, 500, could be 200. We don't know. But if you want to try to win, make sure you leave a comment on that video. I will talk to you soon. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Peace out.